I always thought my grandmother was just an ordinary woman. She lived quietly in her old Victorian house at the edge of town, the kind of place that creaked at night and smelled faintly of lavender and old books. To most people, she was just the sweet old lady who baked pies for church events and gave out the best candy on Halloween. But to me, she was something else entirely. She was the only person in my family who ever truly believed in me. The rest of them, my parents, my brother, my cousins, they saw me as the black sheep, the one who didn't quite measure up, the one who couldn't hold down the kind of polished, successful life they all seemed to wear like masks at family gatherings. They treated me like I was invisible, unless they needed someone to blame. Grandma, though, she always pulled me aside, pressed a cookie into my hand and whispered, "Don't worry, sweetheart. One day they'll see." When Grandma passed, everything inside me broke. She was the anchor that kept me from drifting completely away from this family, and now she was gone. I wasn't surprised when the will reading was scheduled, because Grandma had been meticulous about everything. What surprised me was the way my family suddenly acted, like vultures circling fresh prey. They arrived at the lawyer's office dressed in black, but their eyes weren't red from tears. They were bright with greed. The lawyer, Mr. Cartwright, was a tall, thin man with sharp features and a calm voice. He opened the envelope and began reading the will. My heart sank as I listened. To my father, she left the family land. To my brother, she left the savings bonds. To my cousins, various keepsakes and heirlooms. One by one, everyone's names were called. Everyone's but mine. I sat there frozen, my palms sweating, my throat tight. My mother didn't even look at me. My brother smirked. My cousins exchanged glances that said, "Of course, she gets nothing." Then Mr. Cartwright cleared his throat. "There is one final instruction." The room quieted. The tapping of my cousin's shoe stopped. My father leaned forward, frowning. Mr. Cartwright pulled out a smaller envelope, sealed in red wax. "This is addressed to you," he said, looking directly at me. "And to you alone. Your grandmother's instructions were explicit. You must open this by yourself. No one else is allowed to see it. For the first time in years, every eye in that room was on me." "What?" my brother barked. "That's ridiculous. What could she possibly have left for him?" "That envelope belongs to all of us," my father snapped. But Mr. Cartwright shook his head. "No, her instructions are binding. If anyone else attempts to interfere, they forfeit their inheritance." The silence that followed was heavy. My brother's smirk faltered. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. My cousins stared, their curiosity burning holes through me. I took the envelope in my shaking hands. The wax was stamped with the old family crest. Something Grandma had always told me stories about. I slipped it into my pocket before anyone could lunge for it. The rest of the will was wrapped up quickly, but I barely heard a word. My mind was spinning. Why me? Why a private envelope? What could Grandma have hidden that was meant for my eyes only? As I walked out of the lawyer's office, I felt their stares burning into my back. I knew what they were thinking, that whatever was in that envelope might shift the balance. They had just claimed for themselves. My brother muttered something under his breath, but I didn't stop to listen. I just kept walking, clutching the secret in my pocket like it was my only lifeline. Driving home, I kept glancing at the envelope on the passenger seat. My fingers itched to tear it open right there at a stoplight. But Grandma had written, "Open this alone," and I felt like she'd be watching, making sure I followed her wishes. By the time I got back to my small apartment, my chest was tight with anticipation. I sat at the table, turned the envelope over in my hands, and finally, with a deep breath, broke the wax seal. Inside was a letter, handwritten in her delicate, looping script. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. "My dearest," it began, "if you're reading this, then I am gone. But I need you to know something. Everything they think they know about this family is a lie, and you are the only one I trust to uncover the truth." I froze, the words blurring in front of me. "There is more to my estate than they will ever understand," the letter continued. I left them the scraps. To you, I leave the real legacy. Follow the instructions carefully, and you will see why I couldn't trust anyone else. This will change everything. I swallowed hard, my pulse pounding. Grandma had left me something. Something hidden. Something big. And by the way my family looked at me today, I knew that once they found out, they wouldn't stop until they got it. But they had no idea what was coming. I didn't sleep that night. I kept reading the letter over and over, tracing Grandma's words with my finger, hearing her voice in my head. Every sentence felt heavier than the last. She wrote about secrets buried in the family, things even my father didn't know. She hinted at property, investments, and something she called the key. At the bottom of the letter was a strange instruction. Go to the attic. Lift the third floorboard beneath the rocking chair. What you find there is yours. The attic. I hadn't been up there since I was a kid. Grandma always told me it was off limits, a place she kept locked and dusty. Now I understood why. She was hiding something. The next morning, I drove to her house. The family land now technically belonged to my father, but the funeral had just ended and nobody had moved in yet. The place sat empty, draped in silence. My chest tightened as I unlocked the door with the spare key Grandma had given me years ago. The house smelled the same. Lavender, cinnamon, and the faint scent of wood polish. I could almost feel her presence, like she was watching me. The creaky stairs groaned as I climbed up to the attic door. The key she'd left me in the envelope fit perfectly in the old rusty lock. When the door swung open, dust floated like tiny ghosts in the sunlight. The attic was just as I remembered. Stacks of old trunks, boxes of photographs, quilts folded neatly on shelves. But my eyes went straight to the corner, the rocking chair. It sat facing the window, just like it always had. I knelt down, heart pounding, and pressed my hands to the floorboards. The third one beneath the chair felt different, looser. I pried it up with a screwdriver I found on the shelf, and my breath caught when I saw what was inside. A metal lockbox, heavy, with another note taped on top. Use the key. Trust no one. I slid the small golden key from the envelope into the lock. It clicked open. Inside was a thick stack of documents, a bundle of photographs, and, my breath hitched, several certificates of ownership, property deeds, stock shares, bank account records. Grandma hadn't just been a sweet old lady baking pies. She had been wealthy, extremely wealthy, and she hadn't left any of it to my father, my brother, or my cousins. She'd left it all to me. The letter inside the box confirmed it. You are my true heir, she wrote. I built this in secret, away from the greedy hands of the family. They never appreciated you, never believed in you. But I did. This is yours. Protect it. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to show them what they lost. Tears blurred my vision. For once in my life, someone had seen me, truly seen me, and trusted me with something bigger than myself. But then I heard it. A creak downstairs. My blood ran cold. I froze, clutching the box, and listened. Another creak. Then voices. Familiar voices. My brother, my mother. They were in the house. How the hell did he get in here? My brother snarled. My mother hissed. Quiet, just find him. He must have something. That lawyer wouldn't have made a scene for nothing. Panic surged through me. They couldn't find me up here. Not with this box. If they saw what Grandma had left me, they would tear it from my hands. I quickly shoved the deeds and papers back into the box, locked it, and slid it into my backpack. My heart hammered as I replaced the floorboard, careful to leave no trace. The attic stairs creaked. They were coming up. I darted to the window. It was a long drop to the porch roof, but I had no choice. I pushed the window open, swung my leg out, and dropped onto the shingles. The roof groaned under my weight, but I scrambled across, clutching my backpack, and jumped to the ground below. My knees buckled, but I stayed upright. Behind me, I heard my brother's angry shout from the attic window. What the hell are you doing? Get back here! I didn't answer. I ran. By the time I reached my car, my lungs were burning. I threw the backpack inside and peeled out of the driveway. My hands shook on the steering wheel, but my chest surged with something I hadn't felt in years. Power. For the first time, I had something they couldn't touch, and I knew deep down that this was just the beginning. Grandma had left me more than wealth. She'd left me a weapon, and I was going to use it. The following days were a blur of paranoia and adrenaline. I kept the lockbox hidden under the loose floorboard in my own apartment, checking it every night as if it might vanish. My brother called me 3 times, each time leaving angrier voicemails. I know you took something. Don't play games. You're not entitled to anything. Give it up, or you'll regret it. My mother's message was colder. Whatever she left you, it belongs to this family. Don't be selfish. Selfish, that word burned. All my life they'd called me that whenever I wanted the smallest piece of attention, the tiniest slice of dignity. And now, after Grandma had chosen me, the one they dismissed. Ridiculed, cast aside, they dared to say I was selfish. Still, I knew I had to be careful. They weren't going to let this go. Grandma had been right. They were greedy, ruthless, and if they found out the scope of what she'd left me, they would stop at nothing to take it. I decided to pay Mr. Cartwright another visit. His office smelled of old paper and polished wood, the ticking of a grandfather clock filling the silence. He looked up as I entered, adjusting his glasses. "I figured you might come back," he said quietly. "Did you find the attic?" I hesitated, then nodded. "I did. She left me everything, didn't she?" A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Yes, your grandmother was strategic. She knew what your family would do if they learned the truth. That's why she kept it secret. She wanted you to have not only the inheritance, but the chance to prove yourself." "Prove myself how?" I asked. He leaned back. "By surviving what's coming. They won't give up. Not easily. You need to be prepared." His words chilled me, but they also lit a spark inside me. For once, I wasn't the one being underestimated. I was the one holding the cards. That night, I couldn't resist digging deeper into the documents. I spread them across my kitchen table. Deeds to 3 properties, stock shares worth millions, and bank accounts with balances that made my head spin. But there was one more item, something I hadn't noticed before. At the bottom of the stack was a sealed envelope marked "The Key." I tore it open. Inside was a small brass key and a handwritten note. "Go to the safety deposit box, First National Bank, downtown. Box number 397." The next morning, I went to the bank, heart hammering. The manager escorted me to the vault, the air cool and sterile. I slipped the brass key into the lock of box number 3117 and pulled it open. Inside was a leather journal, worn and fragile. I flipped it open and my breath caught. It was Grandma's handwriting again. Pages and pages of notes, letters, records, detailing not just her wealth, but secrets about the family. Affairs, debts, betrayals, shady business deals my father had covered up, even evidence of my brother's illegal activities. She had kept everything. She had known exactly what they were capable of, and she had armed me with proof. By the time I left the bank, the weight of the journal in my bag, my mind was already racing. This wasn't just inheritance. This was leverage, power, revenge. That evening, I got my first real taste of how far my family was willing to go. When I arrived home, my apartment door was cracked open. My stomach dropped. I pushed it slowly, heart pounding, and saw the mess. Drawers pulled open, cushions slashed, papers scattered everywhere. They had been here, searching for the box. I ran to the hiding spot and yanked up the floorboard. Relief flooded me when I saw the lockbox still there, untouched. I locked the door behind me, every nerve buzzing. An hour later, my brother called again. This time his voice was low, almost taunting. "You can't hide forever. Whatever she gave you, it belongs to us. If you think you can keep it, you're dumber than I thought." I didn't reply. I just let the voicemail play, then hit delete. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of him. Not anymore. I had the lockbox. I had the journal. I had everything Grandma had left me. And soon, I was going to use it all to bring them to their knees. The next week felt like living in the eye of a storm. On the surface, everything was calm. I went to work. I paid my bills. I walked through town like nothing had changed. But underneath, my family was circling, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It didn't take long for the first move. I was leaving the grocery store when my father's car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, and there he was, stone-faced, his eyes cold. "Get in," he said. I froze, clutching my bags. "Why?" "Because we need to talk, now." His voice left no room for argument. Against my better judgment, I slid into the passenger seat. The car smelled of expensive leather and aftershave, but the air between us was thick with tension. "You think you're clever," he said, staring straight ahead. "But I know she left you something, and if you don't hand it over, you're going to regret it." I swallowed hard but forced my voice to stay steady. "She left me what she wanted me to have. That's not my fault." He turned his head slowly, his lips curling into a cruel smile. "Your grandmother was senile. She didn't know what she was doing. Everything she owned belongs to me. To us. You were nothing to her." The words stung, but I held my ground. If that were true, she wouldn't have trusted me. She wouldn't have made sure I got it alone. His hand tightened on the steering wheel, the leather creaking under his grip. "Listen carefully. You've always been weak. You've always been a disappointment. Don't make the mistake of thinking you can win this, because if you try, I'll crush you." I didn't reply. I just opened the door and stepped out, leaving him in the parking lot with his threats echoing behind me. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with Grandma's journal open in front of me. My father's voice replayed in my head, but this time, it didn't scare me. It fueled me. Because in those pages, I had everything I needed to expose him. There were receipts from bribes, contracts signed under the table, even a letter from a woman he'd had an affair with. And my brother? There were police reports hidden away about an incident he'd covered up years ago, evidence that could destroy them both. Grandma hadn't just left me wealth. She had left me a weapon, sharper than any knife, the truth. The more I read, the more my resolve hardened. They thought they could scare me into silence, but I was done being silent. The next morning, I called Mr. Cartwright. "I need your help," I said. He listened as I explained what I'd found. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "You understand what you're suggesting, don't you?" He said quietly. "If you use this, you'll burn every bridge you have left with your family. They'll never forgive you. They've never cared about me anyway," I replied. "This isn't about forgiveness. It's about justice, and maybe a little revenge." He sighed, then said, "All right, if this is what you want, we'll make it airtight. They won't be able to touch you." That night, I didn't sleep. I drafted emails, made copies of documents, organized everything into folders. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just reacting to my family's cruelty. I was preparing to fight back. But then, something happened that reminded me just how dangerous this game was becoming. I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of shattering glass. My heart leapt into my throat. I grabbed my phone and crept into the living room. The window was broken, the curtain fluttering in the breeze. And standing in the shadows was my brother. He grinned when he saw me. "I told you, you can't hide forever." Before I could move, he lunged. We struggled, crashing into the coffee table, papers scattering across the floor. His hands closed around my backpack, the one holding the lockbox. "No," I shouted, wrestling it back from him. He slammed me against the wall, his eyes wild. "It's mine," he snarled. Somehow I managed to shove him off me. He stumbled, tripping over the broken glass, and in that split second, I grabbed the lockbox and bolted out the door. Barefoot, bleeding, heart pounding, I ran down the street with him screaming behind me. That was the night I realized. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was war. I spent the next day in hiding. After the break-in, I couldn't go back to my apartment. My brother knew where I lived, and I had no doubt he'd return with backup. So I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town, curtains drawn, the lockbox and Grandma's journal never leaving my sight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my brother's face twisted with rage, felt his hands ripping at the backpack. They weren't just greedy, they were desperate. And desperate people were dangerous. I opened the journal again, reading the passages I'd already memorized. Grandma had documented everything. The secret accounts. My father used to launder money. The shady deals my brother struck. The debts my mother had hidden from the family. Page after page of their lies, preserved in her careful handwriting. That was when it hit me. I didn't need to fight them physically. I didn't need to protect the box by running forever. I could end this with one move. Expose them. I spent hours scanning the documents, creating digital copies. I saved them to a hidden drive, then backed them up again, sending encrypted files to Mr. Cartwright. If they came for me, they wouldn't just have to steal a box, they'd have to erase every copy of the truth. But even as I prepared, I knew it wouldn't be enough to just protect myself. I wanted them to feel what I'd felt for years. Powerless, humiliated, stripped of everything they thought they controlled. So I planned. First, I called a reporter I remembered Grandma mentioning, a woman named Claire who wrote for the local paper. She had exposed scandals before, the kind that ruined politicians and businessmen. I told her I had something she needed to see. We met in a quiet coffee shop, her sharp eyes scanning me over the rim of her cup. When I slid the folder across the table, she opened it slowly, reading in silence. The deeper she read, the wider her eyes grew. This is explosive," she whispered. "If this is real, it's real," I cut in. "And I want the world to know." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but once this goes public, there's no going back. Your family will be finished." "Good," I said coldly. "That's the point." The second part of my plan was more personal. I started showing up at family gatherings, quiet, calm with a smile that unsettled them. At my cousin's birthday dinner, I handed my father a manila envelope. Inside was a photocopy of one of Grandma's records, proof of his tax evasion. He paled, gripping the paper so tightly his knuckles went white. "Where did you get this?" he hissed. I leaned in and whispered, "Grandma trusted me, and this is only the beginning." His eyes flashed with fury, but for the first time in my life, I saw something else there too. Fear. My brother was next. I slipped a copy of his police report under his door, the one that detailed the assault he thought he'd covered up years ago. He confronted me in the street the next day, his fists clenched, but I just smiled. "You lay one hand on me," I said, "and the next person knocking on your door will be the police. And this time you won't get away." He froze, teeth grinding, but he didn't swing. He knew I was right. Piece by piece, I was dismantling them. They thought they could scare me into silence. Instead, I was holding their futures in my hands and squeezing. When Claire called me 2 weeks later, her voice was electric. "The story's running tomorrow," she said. "Front page. Everything your grandmother documented. It's all going public." I hung up the phone and sat in the silence of my motel room, my chest tight. This was it. Tomorrow, the world would know who they really were. Tomorrow, their masks would shatter. And tomorrow, I would finally be free of them. But as I lay down that night, one thought kept me awake. Once the truth was out, they wouldn't just hate me. They would want revenge, and I had to be ready. The morning the article dropped, the world around me shifted. The front page of the Daily Chronicle screamed with headlines, "Prominent Family, Exposed in Fraud and Corruption Scandal." Beneath it was a photo of my father, my brother, and even my mother, faces frozen and confident, smiles that now looked sinister under the weight of truth. The story detailed everything: illegal businesses, hidden debts, and the manipulations Grandma had so carefully recorded. My name wasn't mentioned, just as I had asked Claire. It wasn't about me, it was about them. By noon, phones across the family were buzzing nonstop. Calls from friends, business partners, and angry investors poured in. Deals collapsed. Banks froze accounts. The image of a perfect, respectable family crumbled in a single day. I sat in that same motel room, watching the chaos unfold on the news. And for the first time in years, I laughed. It wasn't loud or wild, it was quiet, sharp, almost bitter. The kind of laugh that comes when justice finally tilts in your favor. But I knew it wouldn't end here. By evening, I received the first message from my mother. "What did you do?" "You've destroyed us." "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I didn't respond. I let her words sit unanswered, just like all the times I'd begged for her. Acknowledgement, and she'd stayed silent. My father was less subtle. He showed up at the motel, pounding on the door until I thought it might come off the hinges. "Open up, you little traitor!" he roared. "You think you can ruin me? You're nothing without this family." I didn't move. I let him shout, let him rage, while I sat cross-legged on the bed with the lockbox in my lap. The sound of his fury was music to my ears. Eventually, he left, his footsteps retreating into the night. The next day, my brother came. Not to the motel. He wasn't that reckless, but to my workplace. He waited for me in the parking lot, leaning against my car like a predator waiting for its prey. When I saw him, my heart thudded, but I forced myself to walk forward, chin high. "Nice story in the paper," he said coldly. "You think you're smart? You think this is over? You just declared war." "War?" I echoed, meeting his glare. "You declared war the moment you tried to break into my home." "This is me finishing it," he sneered, stepping closer. "You always thought you were special. Grandma's favorite. But here's the truth. You're weak. And weak people don't survive in this family." I smiled, though my stomach churned. Then it's a good thing I don't consider myself part of this family anymore. For a long moment, we stared at each other. Then he leaned in, his voice low and venomous. "You're going to regret this. Every second of your life, you're going to regret it." I didn't answer. I just walked past him, unlocked my car, and drove away. But his words followed me, burrowing into my chest. That night, Claire called again. "The fallout is huge," she said. "Your family's businesses are collapsing. But listen, be careful. They're desperate now. And desperate people do desperate things." I finished, my mind flashing to my brother's threat. "Exactly," she said. "Promise me you won't let your guard down." I promised, but as I hung up, I knew promises were just words. My family wasn't done. If anything, this was only the beginning of their retaliation. 2 days later, I found out just how far they'd go. I returned to the motel after work to find the door ajar. My heart plummeted. Inside, the room was ransacked. Drawers pulled open, mattress slashed, belongings scattered. And on the bed in the middle of the wreckage was a single note written in my brother's unmistakable handwriting. "We'll take back what's ours, one way or another." My hands trembled as I read it, but beneath the fear, a fire ignited in me. They still didn't understand. It wasn't theirs anymore. It never was. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was survival. And if they wanted war, then I'd give them one they'd never forget. The motel break-in rattled me to my core, but it also hardened my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for justice anymore, I was fighting for my life. I packed everything I had left, especially the lockbox, and moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't much, but it had strong locks, and most importantly, it was anonymous. I told no one, not even Claire, where I was staying. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I walked down the street, I felt eyes on me. Every time a car slowed near my building, I wondered if it was them. My family wasn't going to let this go. I knew it, and deep down, I think I even welcomed it, because I wasn't finished either. Grandma's documents had revealed only part of the story. There were more pieces hidden in coded notes she left behind, references to accounts, offshore holdings, even names of associates my father and brother had buried in the shadows. It was a map, and if I followed it, I could not only destroy their empire completely, but also build something of my own from its ashes. So that's what I did. By day, I worked. By night, I pored over Grandma's papers, decoding them piece by piece. Some nights the weight of it crushed me. I was one person against a machine. But every time doubt crept in, I thought of their sneers, their laughter at my expense, their voices telling me I was worthless. That was enough fuel to keep me going. Then one night, as I sat at my desk under the dim light, I heard the soft click of my apartment door unlocking. I froze. The papers scattered in front of me suddenly looked like an open wound. Exposed. Slowly, I reached for the baseball bat I'd kept by my bed since the motel incident. My heart hammered, each beat screaming, they found me. The door creaked open. A shadow slipped inside. I gripped the bat tighter, whispering to myself, "Not tonight." The figure stepped into the light, and it wasn't my father. It wasn't my brother. It was Claire. Relief washed over me so fast I nearly dropped the bat. "God, Claire, what are you doing? You scared me half to death." She raised her hands apologetically. "Sorry, I didn't mean to. I knew you'd shut me out. I needed to see you. And honestly, I was worried." I sighed, lowering the bat. "You could have called." She glanced at the papers spread out. "What is all this?" For a moment, I considered hiding it from her, but then I thought about all she had already done for me. She wasn't just a lawyer anymore. She was the only person I could trust. So I told her everything, about the codes, the accounts, the plan to bring my family's entire empire crashing down. As I spoke, her expression shifted from shock to awe to grim determination. "This is huge," she whispered. "If we can prove all of this, not only will they lose everything, they'll face charges. Real prison time." I nodded. "That's the goal." Her eyes narrowed. "Then let's finish this, together." Hearing that sent a surge of strength through me. For so long, I'd carried the weight alone. But now it wasn't just me against them. It was us. Over the next few weeks, Claire and I worked side by side. She pulled strings I couldn't, contacting federal investigators, feeding them carefully curated pieces of evidence. We built the case brick by brick, until it was a wall so tall and solid, even my father's influence couldn't climb over it. But the more progress we made, the more dangerous it became. Threatening notes appeared under my door. My car tires were slashed. Once, I even caught a glimpse of my brother's SUV parked across the street from my building, engine idling, like a wolf waiting for the chance to strike. They were circling closer, and I knew it was only a matter of time before they made their move. One night, as Claire left my apartment, she turned to me at the door. "They're going to hit back harder. Are you ready for that?" I met her gaze, my voice steady. "I've been ready my whole life." But the truth? My hands were trembling as I said it, and then, just 3 days later, the confrontation I had been dreading and preparing for finally came. It happened on a Friday night. I was walking home from the corner store, a bag of groceries in my hand, when I felt it, the unmistakable weight of someone following me. My chest tightened, but I didn't turn. I kept walking, steady, deliberate, until I reached the alley beside my building. That's when I heard his voice. "Going somewhere?" I turned, and there he was. My brother, leaning against the wall, his smile sharp as a blade. Behind him, my father stepped out of the shadows. My grip tightened on the grocery bag. "What do you want?" I asked, though I already knew. "What do we want?" My father echoed. "We want our lives back. You think you can humiliate us, strip everything away, and walk free? No. You're going to hand over everything Grandma left you. Tonight." I laughed, low and bitter. "Everything Grandma left me? That was never yours to take. And now, the whole world knows who you really are. You're finished." My brother's expression darkened. He lunged forward, grabbing my arm with bruising force. "You think this is over? You think some headlines can kill us? We'll rebuild. But you, he leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. You won't be around to see it. I felt the old fear rising, the same fear they'd planted in me for years. But this time I didn't let it choke me. This time I smiled. Funny, I whispered back. I was about to say the same thing. Before he could react, headlights blazed at the mouth of the alley. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Doors flew open, and men in dark jackets poured out. Federal agents, badges flashing. FBI, step back! My father and brother froze. My brother's grip on my arm slackened. The agents swarmed, forcing them against the wall, cuffing their wrists as they shouted protests. I stepped back, heart pounding. As Claire emerged from the SUV, her eyes locked on mine. She gave the smallest nod. It's done, she said. The scene unfolded in chaos. Agents reading rights. My father cursing, my brother glaring at me with pure venom. But I stood still, calm in the storm, as the weight of years lifted off my shoulders. When they shoved my father into the vehicle, he looked at me one last time. You'll regret this, he spat. I met his gaze steady. No, I said softly. I'll finally sleep. The SUV doors slammed shut, and just like that, they were gone. Silence filled the alley. My knees felt weak, but Claire was at my side in an instant, steadying me. You okay? She asked. I nodded, though tears blurred my vision. Yeah, for the first time, I think I really am. Over the next few months, the headlines never stopped. Fraud, tax evasion, racketeering, court. Trials broadcast for all to see. My family name, once a shield of power, became synonymous with scandal and disgrace. But me, I walked free. Not as a victim, not as the forgotten one, but as the survivor who turned the tables. I kept Grandma's lockbox, even after the agents had everything they needed. It sat on my desk, a reminder of her faith in me, and of the war I'd fought and won. Sometimes late at night, I still heard my brother's words echoing, "You'll regret this." But regret never came, only peace. Because Grandma was right all along. That envelope wasn't just an inheritance, it was a weapon. A truth so sharp it cut through every lie, every betrayal, every scar my family had left on me. And in the end, it gave me the sweetest revenge of all. Freedom.